It feels like the Terry McLaurin contract situation just keeps getting worse. It went from him wanting a new deal to holding out to now requesting a trade. And look, I'm a Washington fan. I do believe a deal still gets done, but it's getting more worrisome each day. McLaurin clearly wants a new deal and didn't show up to training camp when it started. It did make sense. He only has 1 year left on a 3-year, $68 million extension that he signed back in 2022 during the offseason. McLaurin is better now, he's more valuable, and wide receivers are worth a lot of money. The question is what exactly McLaurin wants out of this new deal. DK Metcalf got a huge 4-year, $132 million deal from the Steelers with $60 million guaranteed. My argument there is the Steelers traded for him and were pretty much forced to pay him. T. Higgins got a 4-year, $115 million deal, but it only came with $40.9 million guaranteed. Then Garrett Wilson signed a 4-year deal for $130 million with $90 million guaranteed. That's a deal where you probably wish McLaurin did get signed before it. But then there's the Courtland Sutton deal. And this is an interesting one because Sutton is just barely younger than Terry. Terry has been better, yes, but Sutton got a 4-year, $92 million contract with $41 million guaranteed. That should help Washington, maybe. GM Adam Peters is probably playing hardball to make sure they get a good deal. He was in San Francisco with Deebo Samuel and Joey Bosa. Both did hold out and eventually got new contracts. Of course, we have now gotten to the point in negotiations where McLaurin has requested a trade. He did end up reporting to training camp after 4 days, but got put on the PUP list with an ankle injury. So basically, he isn't getting fined $50K every single day. Now, how real is that ankle injury? I bet if he got a shiny new contract, he'd be fine immediately. The chances that Washington actually trades Terry are low. They need him. He's the clear wide receiver number 1 on a team that just made the NFC Championship. But Washington does also hold a lot of the leverage here. McLaurin is still under contract to make $19.9 million this season. Washington could also franchise tag him after the year if they wanted to. McLaurin wants a deal and wants a lot of money, but those top guys are not only better, but they are also younger. Jamar Chase is making $40 million, which will not be touched. Then Justin Jefferson is at $35 million, and guys file in behind him like CeeDee Lamb, AJ Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Tyreek Hill. It's just hard to put Terry in those same discussions when it comes to value and when it comes to age. If Terry McLaurin doesn't return to Washington for the regular season, it's safe to say that'll be a big problem. It's an important season to see if Jaden Daniels has a sophomore slump or not, and if he can really build on what he was able to accomplish as a rookie. If he's going to do that, it'd be nice to have his number 1 receiver. Terry is that guy. He's a really good receiver, and past him, it gets a little questionable. The number 2 is Deebo Samuel, who Washington actually traded for this offseason. He's actually stayed significantly more healthy, or at least played in more games than the vast majority of fans really think. He's played in 15 games each of the last 2 seasons. The issue is that he clearly isn't the player he once was in 2021 when he broke out. In fact, 2021 is the only time he's had over 900 yards receiving. Last year, he had just 610 yards and 3 touchdowns on 51 receptions as the 49ers really did struggle. The number 3 is Noah Brown, who is coming off of an injury to his kidney that caused him to miss the rest of the season after week 13. Before he got hurt, he had 56 catches for 453 yards and had a single touchdown, that Hail Mary catch against the Bears. He re-signed on a 1-year deal this offseason. Luke McCaffrey is an interesting name who was a 3rd-round pick last year. We didn't see much from him, just 18 receptions for 168 yards. The rookie on the roster to watch, though, is going to be Jalen Lane. Look, I'm a Virginia Tech grad. I saw this dude play a lot. I even saw him play at Tech when he was at Middle Tennessee, and I'm excited to see him play in the pros. It really does seem like he's flashing at training camp, and that Tech just didn't get the most of him. Big surprise there. After him, a lot of meh on the roster. KJ Osborne returns. He was claimed off waivers late last year. And then I'll mention Michael Gallup since he's at least a recognizable name from Dallas. He had an 1,100-yard season in 2019, but it's been a while since that for sure. There are some guys that will hopefully make an impact, but not a single guy that can make up for what Terry McLaurin has produced, or at least been since day 1 in Washington. Terry McLaurin was drafted in the 3rd round by Washington way back in 2019. He wasn't a major standout at Ohio State. His role just slowly grew over the course of 5 seasons, and it led to him having a good redshirt senior year with 35 receptions for 701 yards and 11 touchdowns. Now, his quarterback that year was actually Dwayne Haskins, who Washington ended up taking 15th overall in the same draft, so picking him made a lot of sense. McLaurin flashed really early on. He even started week 1 after he had a good training camp, and it really didn't take long at all to realize he was going to be a beast. His debut was awesome. He had 5 receptions for 125 yards with a 69-yard touchdown. It was one of 3 games he had at least 100 yards. McLaurin ended up missing 2 games on the year, and that really led him to missing out on 1,000 yards. He finished with 919 yards and 7 touchdowns on 58 receptions. McLaurin looked like he could be a legit number 1 wide receiver in the NFL, and it is now safe to say that he has lived up to that, despite having to catch passes from 12 different quarterbacks. As a rookie, there were 3 different starters. You had Haskins, Case Keenum, and Colt McCoy played 1 game. Then in 2020, it was Haskins, Alex Smith, and Kyle Allen. McLaurin got even better from his rookie year, and he had a career-high 87 receptions for 1,118 yards and 4 touchdowns. He had 3 games with over 100 yards. McLaurin did miss 2 games, so he missed 5 games in his first 2 seasons. Since then, he hasn't missed a single game in 4 years. In 2021, he had 77 receptions for 1,053 yards and 5 touchdowns with 4 100-yard games. Taylor Heineke was the main quarterback that year with 15 starts. Then 2022 was Heineke and Carson Wentz, and then Sam Howell got his first ever start. It ended up being a great season for McLaurin. He had 77 receptions for 1,191 yards, 5 touchdowns, and he had 4 100-yard performances. McLaurin ended up making his first ever Pro Bowl. Then Sam Howell was the starter in 2023 and didn't miss a single start. McLaurin went for just over 1,000 yards, 1,002 yards, 4 touchdowns, 79 catches, and had a single 100-yard game. That all goes to show that McLaurin was a good NFL wide receiver before Jaden Daniels landed in Washington. McLaurin has been consistent. He's had 5 straight 1,000-yard seasons now. The big thing that changed with Jaden was touchdowns. Last year, Terry had a career-high 13 touchdowns. It came with 1,096 yards, 82 catches, and he reached 100 yards 5 times. Not only did he make his second Pro Bowl, but more importantly, he was a second-team All-Pro. The Terry McLaurin contract situation isn't simple at the end of the day. A lot of people are saying that Washington just needs to pay him or whatever, but that's just really not how it works. The Commanders need to make sure they get the right price, and specifically the right guarantees on the deal. He's going to be 30 years old soon. You don't want his play declining while you owe him a ton of money and are trying to contend for a Super Bowl. I think he's great. I do love Terry, but he's far outside of the top 5 guys in the NFL at the position, and he isn't even top 2 in the NFC East. He's well behind A.J. Brown and CeeDee Lamb. I'm not quite sure if he's even a top 10 guy, although if I had to break it down, he might be right at 10. That's just really not a guy you can afford to pay $30+ million per season in today's NFL. If they can get that number down to the late 20s, I think that's the perfect spot, and what he's probably deserved. Some teams may be willing to give him 30 flat. I get it. But if he wants to compete for a championship and play with Jaden Daniels, Washington is the spot. Adam Peters has previous experience doing contract negotiations with guys who have held out, even if he was the assistant. He gets it. I've heard some people talk about how ownership just needs to step in and make sure Terry gets paid. No, that was the Dan Snyder way, and it's why Washington was bad for so long. Josh Harris needs to stay out of it, and he has, and just let the front office do their thing. I wish it didn't come to this point. I'm worried it does go south, but I do right now still think Terry is a Commander next year and for a while going forward. It's not an ideal situation, but I think it gets done.